The horse found an abandoned baby in a junkyard, but what happened next will leave you in disbelief. The morning sun cast long shadows across the rusty nail junkyard, illuminating the mounds of discarded metal, broken appliances, and forgotten dreams. A gentle breeze rustled through the tall weeds that had claimed this forgotten corner of rural Oklahoma. Amidst the chaos and decay, a lone figure moved with surprising grace. A Palomino May named Belle Belle won a prized show horse had found refuge in the junkyard after her owner, a kind but aging farmer named Tom, passed away. The junkyard, owned by Tom's gruff but well-meaning brother Jake, was now her unlikely sanctuary. She roamed freely amongst the rusted relics, grazing on the patches of clover that stubbornly persisted in this harsh landscape. On this particular morning, Belle's curiosity was piqued by an unusual sight. Nest amongst a pile of old tires, wrapped in a faded pink blanket, lay a tiny baby girl, her face scrunched up in a peaceful slumber. The infant's soft whimpers echoed through the stillness of the junkyard, drawing Belle closer. With a gentle nudge of her velvety nose, Belle investigated the bundle. The baby stirred, her eyes fluttering open to reveal a pair of wide, innocent blue eyes. A gurgle of delight escaped the infant's lips, and her tiny hand reached out to grasp Belle's man. Belle, instinctively drawn to the helpless creature, stood guard over the baby, her protective instincts kicking in. She whined softly, a sound that carried through the morning air, hoping to attract attention, but the junkyard was deserted at this early hour, and the baby's cries went unanswered. As the sun climbed higher, Belle remained steadfast, shielding the infant from the growing heat. She nudged the baby, keeping her warm, and comforted. The hours passed slowly, and Belle's anxiety grew. She knew the baby needed more than her protection. She needed nourishment and care. Just as Bee's hope began to dwindle, a figure emerged from the shadows of the junkyard's office. Jake, his weathered face etched with concern, approached cautiously, his eyes widening in disbelief at the sight before him. "Well, I'll be," he muttered, his gruff voice softening as he took in the scene. He knelt beside the baby, his rough hands gently lifting her from her makeshift cradle. The baby, startled by the movement, began to cry, her tiny face contorted in distress. Belle whined softly, as if to reassure the baby that she was safe. Jake, his eyes meeting Belle's, felt a surge of gratitude for the horse's vigilance. He knew that without Belle's protection, the baby might not have survived the morning. "You did good, girl," he murmured, stroking Belle's neck. "You did real good." With the baby safely in his arms, Jake headed towards his truck, Belle trotting alongside him. He had no idea where the baby came from or who her parents were, but one thing was certain: this unexpected arrival had changed the quiet rhythm of the rusty nail junkyard forever. The arrival of the baby, whom Jake named Lily, sent ripples of shock and curiosity through the small town of Harmony Ridge. News traveled fast in a place where everyone knew everyone, and soon the rusty nail junkyard was abuzz with visitors. Folks brought clothes, toys, and offers of help, their hearts touched by the story of the abandoned infant and the horse who had saved her. Sheriff Thompson, a portly man with a kind face and a gentle demeanor, launched an investigation into Lily's origins. He scoured missing person reports, interviewed residents, and even contacted neighboring counties, but the search yielded no clues. Lily's past remained shrouded in mystery. Meanwhile, Jake, a man of few words and even fewer emotions, found himself unexpectedly thrust into the role of caregiver. He clumsily navigated the world of diapers, formula, and lullaby, his gruff exterior slowly melting away under the warmth of Lily's innocent gaze. Belle, ever vigilant, remained Lily's constant companion. She would stand patiently by the crib as Jake fumbled with bottles and blankets, her presence a calming influence on the fussy infant. Lily, in turn, seemed to find solace in Belle's gentle presence, her cries often subsiding at the sound of the H's soft whinnies. As the days turned into weeks, a routine began to emerge at the rusty nail junkyard. Jake, with the help of Mrs. Peterson, a kindly widow from down the road, learned the ropes of child care. He discovered the soothing power of rocking chairs, the magic of silly faces, and the joy of a baby's laughter. Lily thrived under their care, her giggles echoing through the once silent junkyard. She would spend her days exploring her unusual surroundings, crawling amongst the discarded treasures, her laughter mingling with the clanging of metal and the chirping of birds. One afternoon, as Jake sat on the porch swing watching Lily play in the yard, A weathered pickup truck pulled up to the gate. A woman stepped out, her face etched with worry and her eyes filled with a desperate hope. She approached Jake hesitantly, her voice trembling as she spoke. I heard about the baby found in the junkyard, she said, her gaze fixed on Lily. I think she might be mine. Jake's heart sank. He had grown accustomed to Lily's presence, to the way she filled his days with purpose and joy. The thought of losing her was like a punch to the gut. He invited the woman in, his mind racing with questions. Who was this woman? Why had she abandoned her child, and was she truly Lily's mother? As the woman recounted her story, a tale of hardship, desperation, and regret, Jake found himself torn between his growing affection for Lily and the possibility of reuniting her with her biological mother. The fate of little Lily hung in the balance, and the future of the Rusty Nail Junkyard seemed uncertain once more. The woman who introduced herself as Maggie recounted a heartbreaking story of teenage pregnancy, a disapproving family, and a desperate attempt to provide a better life for her child. She explained that she had left Lily at the junkyard hoping that someone would find her and give her the care she couldn't provide. Maggie's story was filled with regret and remorse. She spoke of sleepless nights haunted by the image of her abandoned child. She had tried to move on, to convince herself that she had made the right decision, but the guilt had gnawed at her, eventually leading her back to Harmony Ridge. Jake listened intently, his heart heavy with conflicting emotions. He saw the genuine pain in Maggie's eyes, the love for her child that shone through her tears, but he also couldn't shake the feeling that she had abandoned Lily, leaving her to the mercy of fate. Sheriff Thompson, who had been discreetly observing the conversation, stepped forward. He gently questioned Maggie, verifying her story and confirming her identity as Lily's mother. He explained the legal implications of her actions, but also acknowledged the complexities of her situation. The decision ultimately rested with Jake. He could fight for custody of Lily, arguing that Maggie had forfeited her rights as a mother, or he could give Maggie a second chance, allowing her to reclaim her child and try to rebuild their lives together. Torn between his own desires and what he believed was best for Lily, Jake retreated to the solitude of his workshop. He paced amongst the rusty tools and forgotten projects, his mind in whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. He thought of the joy Lily had brought into his life, the way she had filled the void left by his brother's passing, but he also recognized the deep bond between mother and child, a bond that he as a bachelor could never fully replicate. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the junkyard, Jake made his decision. He emerged from the workshop, his face etched with a mixture of sadness and resolve. He approached Maggie, who sat nervously on the porch swing, Lily sleeping peacefully in her arms. Maggie, he began, his voice rough with emotion, I believe you love Lily. I see it in your eyes and the way you hold her. He paused, taking a deep breath. I'm not going to stand in the way of you being a mother to your child, but I want you to know that Lily has a home here with me and Belle. If things don't work out, if you ever need help, you know where to find us. Maggie's eyes filled with tears of gratitude. She thanked Jake profusely, promising to stay in touch and keep him updated on Lily's progress. As she climbed into her truck, Lily nestled securely in her arms. Jake felt a pang of sadness, but also a sense of peace. He had done what he believed was right, even if it meant saying goodbye to the little girl who had captured his heart. Life at the Rusty Nail Junkyard returned to a semblance of normalcy, but the silence was deafening. Jake went through the motions of his day, sorting scrap metal, fixing old engines, but his heart wasn't in it. He missed Lily's laughter, the way she would toddle around the yard, her tiny hands reaching for his callous ones. Even seemed subdued, her playful spirit dampened by the absence of her little companion. Weeks turned into months, and the seasons changed. The vibrant colors of autumn gave way to the stark beauty of winter, and the junkyard was blanketed in a pristine layer of snow. Jake received occasional updates from Maggie, postcards with pictures of Lily growing bigger and stronger, her smile radiant. The news brought him a bittersweet joy, a reminder of what he had lost, but also a reassurance that Lily was thriving. One evening, as Jake sat by the fire nursing a cup of coffee and lost in thought, a knock on the door startled him. He opened it to find Sheriff Thompson standing on the porch, his face etched with concern. Jake, the sheriff began, his voice grave, I have some news about Maggie. It's not good. Jake's heart sank. He had a premonition that something was Wrong, a feeling that had been gnawing at him for weeks, he invited the sheriff in. His mind racing with anxious thoughts, the sheriff explained that Maggie had been involved in a car accident. She had been hospitalized with serious injuries, and her prognosis was uncertain. Lily thankfully was unharmed, but she was now in the care of social services. Jake felt her tiny hands clinging to her man. She would follow Lily around the junkyard, her watchful presence a source of comfort and security. Life with Lily was far from easy, but it was also filled with unexpected joys. Jake discovered a playful side. He never knew he had a capacity for love that surprised him. He found himself singing silly songs, building makeshift forts out of scrap metal, and reading bedtime stories with exaggerated voices. Lily, in turn, blossomed under his care. She thrived in the freedom of the junkyard, her imagination ignited by the rusty treasures and the wide open spaces. She developed a deep bond with Belle, whispering secrets into her ear and sharing her snacks with her equine friend. One sunny afternoon, as Jake watched Lily chase butterflies in the meadow, a wave of sadness washed over him. He thought of Maggie lying in a hospital bed miles away, unable to witness her daughter's happiness. He knew he had to do something to bridge the gap between mother and child. He decided to take Lily to visit Maggie. He packed a bag with Lily's favorite toys and a change of clothes, and they set off on the long drive to the hospital. Belle, of course, came along, her presence a calming influence on both Jake and Lily. The hospital room was small and sterile, the air heavy with the scent of antiseptic. Maggie, pale and frail, lay in the bed, her eyes lighting up when she saw Lily. Tears streamed down her face as she reached out to her daughter, her voice weak but filled with love. Lily, initially hesitant, soon warmed up to her mother, her tiny hand reaching for Maggie's face. They spent the afternoon playing games, reading books, and sharing quiet moments of connection. Jake watched from the corner of the room, his heart aching for Maggie but also filled with hope. As the sun began to set, it was time to leave. Lily, exhausted from the day's excitement, fell asleep in Jake's arms. Maggie, her eyes filled with gratitude, thanked Jake for bringing Lily to see her. She's beautiful, Maggie whispered, her voice hoarse. You're taking good care of her, Jake. Thank you. Jake nodded, his throat tight with emotion. He promised to bring Lily back for another visit soon, and he left the hospital with a renewed sense of purpose. He knew that Lily needed both him and Maggie in her life, and he was determined to make that happen. The visits to the hospital became a regular part of their routine. Every few weeks, Jake would load Lily and Belle into his truck and make the long drive to see Maggie. With each visit, Maggie grew stronger, her spirit rekindled by the presence of her daughter. Lily, in turn, developed a growing affection for her mother, her initial hesitation replaced by eager anticipation. Jake watched this burgeoning relationship with a mixture of pride and melancholy. He knew that Maggie was making progress, that she was on the road to recovery, but he also couldn't deny the pang of sadness he felt, the knowledge that Lily would eventually return to her mother's care. He tried to push those thoughts aside, focusing on the present, on cherishing the time he had with Lily. He continued to build their life together, creating a world of wonder and adventure within the CONF finds of the Rusty Nail Junkyard. He built Lily a swing set from old tires and chains, a playhouse from discarded wooden pallets, a sandbox from an old truck bed. He taught her the names of the tools in his workshop, the different types of metal, the stories behind the rusted relics that littered the yard. Lily, a natural explorer, thrived in this unconventional environment. She spent her days climbing on piles of scrap, digging for treasure in the dirt, and creating imaginary worlds with her collection of rusty odds and ends. Belle, her faithful companion, was always by her side as silent guardian and playmate. One day, while exploring a forgotten corner of the junkyard, Lily stumbled upon an old rusted bicycle. Its tires were flat, its paint chipped, its seat torn, but Lily's eyes lit up with excitement. She begged Jake to fix it, her enthusiasm contagious. Jake, ever the tinkerer, couldn't resist the challenge. He spent the next few days restoring the bicycle, replacing the tires, patching the seat, and giving it a fresh coat of bright pink paint. When he presented it to Lily, her joy was boundless. She spent hours riding her new bicycle around the junkyard, her laughter echoing through the air. Belle, ever watchful, trotted alongside her hooves kicking up dust clouds. Jake, leaning against his workshop door, watched them with a smile, his heart swelling with love for the little girl who had brought so much joy into his life as the weeks turned into months. Lily's bond with Jake deepened. He was more than just a caregiver, he was her father figure, her confidant, her hero. She would follow him around the junkyard, mimicking his every move, her small hands trying to grasp his tools. One evening, as they sat on the porch swing watching the sunset paint the sky in vibrant hues, Lily turned to Jake, her eyes filled with a question. "Jake," she asked, her voice small and hesitant, "are you my daddy?" Jake's heart melted. He looked into her innocent eyes, seeing the love and trust reflected there. He knew he couldn't lie. Lily for Maggie's visit, explaining that her mommy was coming home and that they would be spending time together. Lily excited at the prospect of seeing her mother chattered incessantly about the games they would play and the stories they would share. The day of Maggie's arrival dawned bright and sunny. Jake cleaned the house, baked cookies, and picked wildflowers to brighten the living room. He wanted everything to be perfect to create a welcoming atmosphere for Maggie's homecoming. When Maggie arrived, her face was radiant, her eyes sparkling with a mix of joy and nervousness. Lily rushed into her arms, showering her with hugs and kisses. Maggie held her daughter close, tears of happiness streaming down her face. They spent the afternoon playing in the yard, Maggie's laughter mingling with Lily's. Jake watched from the porch, his heart aching with a bittersweet mix of emotions. He saw the deep connection between mother and child, the undeniable bond that he could never fully replicate. As the sun began to set, they gathered around the kitchen table, sharing a simple meal of sandwiches and cookies. Maggie, her voice filled with gratitude, thanked Jake for taking such good care of Lily. "She's amazing," Maggie said, her eyes shining with love. "You've done an incredible job, Jake. I don't know what I would have done without you." Jake shrugged, downplaying his role. "It was my pleasure, Maggie." Lily's a special little girl. A silence fell over the table. The unspoken question hanging in the air. Maggie, her expression turning serious, finally addressed the elephant in the room. "Jake," she began, her voice hesitant, "I know this is a difficult conversation, but we need to talk about Lily's future." Jake nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew what was coming, but he wasn't sure he was ready for it. "I want Lily to come live with me," Maggie continued, her voice gaining strength. "I'm ready to be a mother to her, to give her the life she deserves." Jake felt a wave of sadness wash over him, but he also knew that Maggie was right. Lily belonged with her mother, with the woman who had given her life. "I understand, Maggie," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I want what's best for Lily, and that's being with you." Maggie reached across the table, taking his hand. "Thank you, Jake. I know this isn't easy for you, but I appreciate your understanding." They discussed the logistics of the transition, the legal paperwork, the visitation arrangements. Jake insisted that Lily could visit him and Belle whenever she wanted, that their bond would continue. As Maggie prepared to leave, Lily clung to Jake, her eyes filled with tears. "I don't want to leave you, Daddy," she cried. Jake knelt down, holding her close. "I know, sweetheart, but you'll be with your mommy now, and that's important. I'll still be here, and you can visit whenever you want." He kissed her forehead, his heart breaking. He watched as Maggie and Lily drove away, the taillights disappearing into the darkness. The silence that descended upon the rusty nail junkyard was deafening, the emptiness palpable. The days following Maggie and Lily's departure were the hardest Jake had ever endured. The silence in the house was deafening, the absence of Lily's laughter a constant ache in his heart. Even Belle seemed to share his grief. Her usually playful spirit subdued. The junkyard, once a place of joy and adventure, now felt empty and lifeless. Jake threw himself into his work, trying to keep busy to distract himself from the pain. He spent long hours in his workshop, surrounded by the familiar clutter of tools and spare parts, the rhythmic clang of metal a temporary solace. But even in the midst of his labors, Lily's image would flash before his eyes, her laughter echoing in his ears. He kept his promise to Maggie, facilitating regular visits between Lily and himself. Every weekend Lily would arrive at the rusty nail junkyard, her face alight with excitement. Those weekends were a whirlwind of activity, filled with laughter, games, and shared adventures. They would explore the junkyard, build forts, ride bikes, and tell stories under the shade of the old oak tree. Belle, rejuvenated by Lily's presence, would join in their games, her tail swishing happily. During the week, Jake would often drive into town to visit Lily at Maggie's small apartment. He would bring groceries, help with chores, and spend time playing with Lily. He watched with pride as Maggie blossomed into a loving and attentive mother, her bond with Lily growing stronger. With each passing day, despite the joy of these visits, a part of Jake still longed for the days when Lily was a constant presence in his life. He missed the bedtime stories, the morning cuddles, the spontaneous hugs and kisses. He missed the feeling of being needed, of being a father figure to the little girl who had captured his heart. One evening, as Jake sat on his porch watching the sunset paint the sky in fiery hues, he realized that his definition of family had changed. Family wasn't just about blood ties, it was about love, loyalty, and the shared experiences that bind people together. He had found a family in Lily and Maggie, a family that had brought him more joy and fulfillment than he had ever imagined. He knew that his role in Lily's life had evolved. He was no longer her primary caregiver, but he was still her daddy. Jake, the man who had loved and protected her, the man who had shared her laughter and dried her tears. He would always be there for her, a constant presence in her life, a source of unconditional love and support. As the years passed, Lily grew into a bright and independent young girl. She excelled in school, made friends easily, and continued to visit Jake and Belle regularly. The Rusty Nail Junkyard remained her sanctuary, a place where she could be herself, where she could explore her imagination and reconnect with the man who had played such a pivotal role in her early life. Jake, watching Lily blossom into a remarkable young woman, felt a profound sense of gratitude. He had been given a second chance at fatherhood, an unexpected gift that had enriched his life beyond measure. He had learned the true meaning of family, the enduring power of love, and the transformative magic of an abandoned baby, a palomino, and a rusty old junkyard.